Hello, hello. Welcome to Healthy Perspectives, a podcast that takes on current cultural and social issues through a clinical lens. Hello, hello. All right, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, we appreciate your time. I know the last few episodes been jumping around a little bit. Did some of that teen stuff. The timing of that's probably not perfect because there's so much political and cultural stuff going on right now. But we're getting after it. The last one we got back to some of the political arena because that has a pretty significant impact on our culture. Remember, super quick review here. Culture is formed by the individual. Individuals make up the small groups put together make up culture. So always 100% of the time, it starts with the individuals. Keep that in mind whenever I do something that focuses primarily on some of the cultural content. It always starts with you. It always starts with me. It always starts with whoever you come in contact with. Today, though, I'm going to be hitting communication. I'm going to go over some of the basics of communication again. I've done this before, and today I'm going to do it for you a little different because I want to take a look at real communication in real time. So we're going to use some of the debate content. I reviewed the first, so I watched the entire debate. I'm going to be honest. I only reviewed the first 30 minutes or so of the debate, 31 minutes. I was up to like minute marker 31, 32, somewhere in that vicinity. So that first third, I know super well because I broke it down and I showed in the last podcast 11 ways that ABC screwed up in terms of their facilitating of the debate. And, I'm not here to take a side politically, whether it's Democrats, Republicans, because let's be real, I'm a registered independent. What I'm trying to do is to help you in this podcast, help you see things from a healthy perspective. That's what I'm trying to do. Nothing more, nothing less. That's it. Now, there's going to be some clear things we're going to see today. I'm going to point them out. I'm going to break some things down. I'm going to pick markers past the 32-minute mark on purpose because I honestly don't know exactly what I'm going to pick. I'm doing that on purpose. You can think otherwise if you want. I did see the entire debate, but I didn't dig into past the 30-minute or 32-minute mark on the YouTube version. So when I break it down with the debate, I'm going to be breaking it down in real time for me. Real time. All right. So let's get rolling. The basics of communication. Here we go. I'm going to pull up something that I use as a teaching tool because it's a great spot for us to start. Okay. If it lets me do it. Okay. Basics of communication. Now, for those of you following on Rumble or YouTube, you're going to get to see this. For those of you who are not, I just pulled up a quick PowerPoint that I use when I'm working with couples. I'm not going to, go into the whole thing. I'm starting a couple of frames in because this was set up for me to use for a very specific example within couples. But I have inserted the basics of communication into it. So why not use it? Communication, sender, receiver. Going from A to B, you'll see on the screen, we've got a red arrow. Communication is directional. Sender A is attempting to send a message, that's the red arrow, to receiver B. Pretty simple, right? What the components are is there has to be at least one person as a sender, at least one person as a receiver. So at bare minimum, two people in communication. And there has to be a clear, red arrow, message. Clear message. Okay. That's basic communication, but complex communication is a sender becomes a receiver. The receiver becomes the sender. So on both sides of the equation, we could be the sender or the receiver. And there could be messages going multiple directions. This is more common. This is what we're used to on a day-to-day basis, complex communication. Senders and receivers are changing roles. Messages are going from one to the other, and maybe they're reflecting it back, the same message, or maybe they're taking the message and creating a new message in return. Okay. Types of communication are verbal, oral or written, paraverbal, tone, volume, and cadence, and nonverbal, body language and facial expressions, as well as environment. The environment absolutely matters. I'm actually going to skip this. We're going to move on to the next piece, which is going to be the debate. That's the basics of communication, folks. That's it. Sounds simple? Okay, well, let's see it in real life. And we're going to use the debate as our example. Give me a second. I'm going to share that with you. The debate is going to be our example because I want you to see what this looks like in real time. All right, I'm at minute 4 something. I said I got to go past 32. All right, so let's go. Let's make sure I'm well past that. Let's go to 30. I'm going to find a gap here where there's a transition. Boom. Okay, there is a gap right there. And so what we are going to do is I'm going to try to move this so that I can see. Oh, that's not a transition actually. Okay, maybe this is, yeah, there we go. All right, here's a transition for you folks. We are going to break down communication. For today's purposes, I am not going to use the moderators because I spoke about the moderators. Clearly, I have a perspective on the moderators that they did a terrible job, which I spent some time proving to you from a clinical lens that they didn't stay neutral. So they were not moderating. They were not mediating. What they were in fact doing was contributing to the debate. And that's not what we want that role to be. So they did a terrible job in this particular situation. But I'm going to break down communication for Donald Trump and for Kamala Harris. I'll go through maybe 3 or 4 examples to show you complex communication. In this, I'm going to be looking at sender, receiver. I'm going to be looking at the actual communication, so the message, and I'm going to be looking at the 3 forms: verbal, nonverbal, paraverbal. Okay. It's a lot to do, folks. So just hang with me. All right. Here we go.
That the vice president has reacted to as well. President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S. military.
Police, yes.
You also said you would use local police. How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah, it is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in drug dealers.
Okay, folks, let's break this down for a second. I haven't gone very far, but what this is fear mongering. Like it, don't like it. That's fear mongering. It's blaming and fear mongering. So the sender, Donald Trump, is sending a message to Kamala that you are allowing, the message is you're allowing this to happen, and I'm going to use it to create fear that we are going to be overtaken. Now, if that fear is justified or not, that's up to you to figure out. But that is the communication. That's the message being sent. He's very direct. His communication is clear, so it's verbal. The verbal stuff is clear. It's very understandable. The paraverbals are very they're not how do I say it? It's not about aggressive, but it's close to that. It's assertive. That's the word I was looking for. Assertive. And then the nonverbals are Notice he's leaning into the podium a little bit. He's sending a clear nonverbal message that he really wants you, the audience, and Kamala Harris and the moderators to hear this message. Okay, moving on.
Dealers to come into our country, and they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country.
Again, blame. It's the same message. He stayed on the message in this particular instance.
And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow. And I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it.
Okay, so there he changed the message. I hope you all saw that. The sender is sending a different message. He is sending also this other fear-mongering message that it's about getting votes. So now you're supposed to be afraid of these people coming in. You're also supposed to be afraid of them voting. Okay, so that's his message. You like it, don't like it, that's what he's doing right there.
Because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in, and all over the world, crime is down all over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof, despite their fraudulent statements that they made.
Okay, now he straight up just called them, meaning Kamala Harris and probably Joe Biden, because he said them, liars. Okay, whether you agree with it or not, that's more name calling. You are liars. If it's accurate or not, you got to decide. I'm just telling you the message. All right.
Crime in this country is through the roof.
Okay. I loved this clip. Y'all think I'm going to talk about Donald Trump right here, but I'm switching gears. Did you all see the communication from Kamala Harris? Remember, there are three kinds of communication. There are verbal, paraverbal, and nonverbal. While Donald Trump is talking here, did you see the nonverbal communication? I'm going to go back 5 seconds and I'm going to do it again. All right. What is specifically for those of you following along? Look at Kamala Harris and let's see if we can figure out what message she is sending through her nonverbal communication.
Crime is down all over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof, despite their fraudulent statements that they made. Crime in this country is through the roof. And
did y'all see it? There was actually some verbal in there that I didn't catch the very first time. So I apologize for that. But the verbal communication, she said that's not true. She's shaking her head. She is dismissing everything that he is saying at this point. She doesn't even care. She doesn't even care to hear him at this point. Because, partly he's been blaming her and he's saying these things and she disagrees. She doesn't agree. The message she is sending is, I don't agree with you. That's pretty clear. All right, let's go forward to whenever Kamala Harris starts and let's see how she communicates. Actually, we're going to have to see that part because sometimes the moderators, and I don't know if this is an example of that, but they changed the topic for the debate rather than staying on topic. They sometimes would change it. I don't know if this is one of those examples.
But Vice
excuse
President
me,
Harris,
the FBI they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud, just like.
Okay, so this is him changing the discussion again. Now, why did he change the discussion 2 or 3 times in there? He's probably pandering to his audience, whoever his audience is. This is common technique in politics. I don't like it. I think it's a waste of time. Unfortunately, it happens a lot. Both sides did this throughout the entire debate. But he did change the message again. So, we'll see how she starts to respond.
Like their number of.
I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Well, I think this is so rich coming from someone who has been prosecuted for.
What happened there? Did you see all of that? Look, in that 2-second clip, there was so much. She is demeaning him. You don't have to like what I'm saying. She is purposely demeaning him, putting him in his quote unquote place. She's nodding. She's arrogant. She's disrespectful and mean. Have you ever known somebody who has been accused of something, whether rightly or wrongly? Did you ever notice that they're still a person? She's treating him like a dog. Like it, don't like it. That's up to you. I'm just telling you that's what she's doing there. And he's arrogant too. Did you see him nod? Oh my gosh, watch it. I'll replay it.
Coming from
See the arrogance? See the you're less than a human to me. It's in her words. It's in her nonverbals. It's in her paraverbals. She doesn't see him as human here. That, my friends, is going back to a previous podcast that I did, Trump derangement syndrome right there. And unfortunately, Trump feeds it here in just a second. Watch.
someone who has been prosecuted.
Did you see that? I hope you're watching. He giggles, he chuckles about it. Ooh, this is rich, folks, as she would say. Rich with content. The message here is you are less than Donald Trump. Like it, don't like it, do what you want.
For national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing.
Okay, what's the message? The verbal message is you are backed into a corner and I'm going to treat you like the pinned animal that you are. That's her message. She points to November. She's very aware of the prosecutions going on here, regardless of what you've heard elsewhere. She's super intimately aware because if I'm not mistaken, that just changed within a day or so of the debate. It was all set up. So she knows. She's getting briefed on this. On the flip side of that, he arrogantly stands there nodding as if like, yeah, come at me. Come at me. And yet he's being prosecuted. So why not some humility there, I would ask? That would be a curiosity I would have. So his nonverbals are sending you that message.
And let's be clear where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice
She completely changed the message. She changed it to what she wants it to be. She has changed it to what? The rule of the law. That's what she did. She wants it to be about the rule of law because that gives her the debate advantage if this were actually a debate, which you can watch my last podcast about that. Her communication is clear. She thinks that this is an issue she's going to have the upper hand in because she was very assertive, even in this particular situation, very aggressive at pursuing this line of communication. All right. So we're going to go back to
president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts.
Okay, so she brought up something here. The message is defunding law enforcement. And here's what's really interesting. That topic has come up many, many times in different forms. So now we're talking about the issue, the message being defunding law enforcement. You got to think about this one yourself. I'm not sure. Here, I'll put it into context because one of the other things we do in this, I was going to get to this later, but I'm going to do it right here, is called patterns. Patterns and pattern changes. When we see pattern changes, which this is a pattern change for her, She's trying to change a pattern she has created for herself historically. She has talked many times about defunding police. And now she's trying to take that and shift it over to Donald Trump. Okay. I'm telling you, I'm not telling you if it's right or wrong, if it's good or bad, if she should or shouldn't. I'm telling you that the message here is patterned out different than messages she has previously sent. That's not typically a good sign in politics, because when a politician changes their mind, even if it's because they should change their mind, it still has a way of coming out and changing the way they are received. Those messages are received, because we, you, me, everybody, we look for communication patterns a lot. Okay, so moving on.
So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old.
Did you see that? That we move forward, that we change them. This is her biggest tagline in her communication. We've been watching this develop over the last, patterned out over the last month to 2 months. Almost every time she talks, this is something that comes up in that pattern. But her message is very clear. Her paraverbals line up with, I want this to move forward. That's good. The paraverbals line up. And her nonverbals are saying, you can get that with me. That's what her nonverbals. Well, simultaneously, if you had seen the other side of the screen, Donald Trump is nodding. Like, yeah, let's move forward. He actually agrees with that tagline. He isn't wanting to go backward. I'll replay it so you can see. So if somebody's telling you otherwise, it's probably not accurate. Listen.
That we move forward, that we turn the page on this same.
Did you see that? When she said turn the page, he's in agreement. He nods up and down. He's like, yeah. His affect suggests he completely agrees with that particular line. As that message is coming across, he is nodding in affirmation. Do what you want with it. Again, I'm breaking down the communication.
Old tired rhetoric, and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses.
And she starts throwing, here's shotgun style. In communication, when we go shotgun style, it's not normally super beneficial. I'm just giving you the scoop, because it's a person can only receive so much information at a time. So the fact that she's going shotgun style is actually, it's not horrible, because his affect, the way that this is broken up, he's staying really docile, which means all the attention can really focus on her and allow us to pick up the different taglines that she's going with here, these different markers. It's something that should be done in communication very cautiously, because if I'm going to throw a lot of information, a lot of messages at you, I have to make sure that you're going to be able to catch them. So a lot of times when that's happening, we're doing it because you already know this information. It's not new information. All I'm doing is reiterating. And she's very clear in her verbals. Her paraverbals line up, and her nonverbals are also lining up right now.
Address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President.
Then she speaks for you and me. So her message is, I know the people. Whether you agree with her or disagree with her, that's what she's trying to convey there. I know the people. All right. So you heard the moderator break in here. So I'm going to fast forward. I'm going to get to something different. I don't know what, but let's get to something different. Let's go to, I don't know, whatever this is. Actually, let's go forward a ways. I'm just because I want to get to something that's whatever's completely different. Break down the communication. Again, remembering today, folks, our goal here is breaking down communication. It is not what's right and wrong, what's good or bad, what side are you on or not on. I'm breaking down communication. That's it.
The ABC News President.
Okay, well, that didn't work, folks. Give me a second.
This historic ABC News presidential best interest. You have said you would solve this war in 24 hours. You said so just before the break tonight. How exactly would you do that? And I want to ask you a very simple question tonight. Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives that are being people being killed.
So this is an example of a direct question and a direct response, except his answer does not suffice the moderator. I remember this part, so I apologize. I'm going to read into this a little bit because I know what happens next, and then I just remember it. He says he wants the war to end, and he wants lives to stop being lost. That is a clear message. His verbals and paraverbals and his nonverbals all line up with that being his message. I want this war to stop. I want people to stop dying in this war. Does that mean he, hasn't picked a side? I don't know. But let's be real, folks. Staying neutral has some advantages. Picking a side has some advantages. You got to figure all that out. But he's saying, I don't want to take a side. That's his message. What his side is, I want the war to end. That's what he said.
Killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers. Look.
That was more of him reiterating a message. I really don't prefer that kind of approach. It's annoying to me because in communication, it's just noise with your fake numbers. Like, leave it up to the receiver of this information to discern. Now, they do this because they think you're stupid. They think you're too dumb to figure it out. So they got to highlight it for you. They're like, highlighter on the book. I'm going to give you this message clearly.
We're in for 250 billion or more because they don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are. They're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the.
So more accusations, $150 billion. You should get Europe. His message is turning to economics, the economics of war. So that's where he wants to go. Whether you agree or disagree with him, he wants to go into the economics of war, right? Notice that when he makes the accusation, the pause frame that I have right here, she is sending a message of smugness, arrogance. She is definitely, on her high horse at this moment. I don't know what it's going to do in the next seconds because I'm honest, I don't remember that part. But let's take a look.
Courage to ask Europe, like I did with NATO. They paid billions. And
did you see the subtlety? The subtlety in Kamala Harris's reaction to what Donald Trump is saying there? She is smirking now. She thinks that Donald Trump is walking into something. I don't know what. I really don't remember that part.
And billions, hundreds of billions of dollars when I said, either you pay up or we're not going to protect you anymore.
She disagrees now. She thinks that she has found something that she can hold on to right there. You could see it in her response. And with that, we're going to go forward to whenever she is talking and see what she says. Let's find out.
I will get it settled before I even become president. If I win, when I'm president-elect, and what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, Putin, and you don't even know I'm out of president,
Mr. President,
that doesn't know he's alive.
Your time is up. Just to clarify in the question, do you believe it's in the U.S. best interest for Ukraine to win this war, yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get this war finished and just.
Folks, that was another example. If you listen to my last podcast, I came up with 11 times that the moderators in the debate challenged one side and never challenged the other. That was another example of that. And he's reiterating the same message that he said before.
Get it done.
All right.
Negotiate a deal, because we have to stop all of these human lives from being destroyed.
I want to take this to Vice President Harris. I want to get your thoughts on
reiterated
support
the
for
same
Ukraine
message.
in this moment.
Again, I said he reiterated the same message, which is actually good in communication. We want to see that kind of stuff. His verbals stayed consistent.
But also, as commander-in-chief, if elected, how would you deal with Vladimir Putin? And
Okay, he reframed this. Did y'all catch that? She now is being asked a totally different question, saying, you don't have the power right now, but if you did, would you do something different? That is an example of him supporting Kamala Harris, unfortunately. I wasn't hoping to go into that, but I want to emphasize that, because that kind of communication changes everything. I was trying to avoid the moderators as much as I could today, folks, but understand that was crappy moderating.
would it be any different from what we're seeing from President Biden?
Well, first of all, it's important to remind the former president, you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me.
Okay, so that's a point of power. It's good. I have no issue with that communication. It's very direct. She's looking at him. She is saying, you know, stop talking about him and talk about me. Talk about us. I like it. I think that was pretty fantastic. That was probably one of her best moments in the entire thing.
I believe the reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up.
And there you go, folks. Her message is fear Donald Trump. Fear mongering. Just like I said earlier with Donald Trump, she just went into that same exact thing. Fear monger. She's like, oh, yeah, because he wouldn't do anything. He's just going to give up. He's going to quit. He's not going to pick a side, and he's not going to support, and like whatever. So she's fear mongering here. That's what that is. It's very clear communication. Her verbals, her paraverbals, her nonverbals, they all line up.
And that's not who we are as Americans. Let's understand.
And then she tries to speak for you and me. Are we people, she says, who give up, or now you're put in a position, you and me are put in the position that, well, does give up save lives? Sometimes we have to ask ourselves this question. Sometimes quitting on something is the best outcome. When we find out that we can't do something in the way that we want to, sometimes quitting, you know, taking our losses, we learn this in business. You know, sometimes it's better to cut your losses and move on. Now you are in a position where you have to decide between those two models. But look at the arrogance on Donald Trump's face, for those of you who follow along. Yikes.
Understand what happened here. I actually met with Zelensky a few days before Russia invaded, tried through force to change territorial boundaries, to defy one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity.
Now notice how she's communicating this in this moment. She is looking at him and saying to him, these are things you don't understand. You don't have to agree with me on this. Look at it for yourself. I'll go back and I'll play it one more time. Her nonverbals and her paraverbals are saying, Donald Trump, you don't understand sovereignty. You don't understand this issue. Watch.
Rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence.
She's saying, you don't get what I get. Folks, this is complex communication. That's what it is. You're dealing with some really complex communication. And it happens in real time. And if you're not paying attention, how many messages are you going to miss? I broke down 2 or 3 things. That's it. I wasn't going into it to pick a side. I was breaking down the communication. Patterns matter. When people change patterns, in other words, when they say we're open border and then close a border, They say close the border and they open the border. When they say, we're for Ukraine and they change to we're not for Ukraine, that would matter. These patterns, you have to pattern this stuff out, folks. This was the point at which I was going to talk about patterns, but I did it a little bit inside there. Look, something that makes you believe somebody is changing or is different today than yesterday scares the daylights out of us. It just does. It makes them non-believable, not believable for a period of time until we see the new consistent pattern. And that takes time. It always takes other people longer to catch up to the change that I make than it does for me. That's why I can get disgruntled or frustrated when I make a change and nobody notices and nobody notices and nobody notices and nobody gives me credit and nobody gives me credit and nobody gives me credit. It's frustrating, but that's because it takes time for them to pattern it out to see that the change was real. Changing your pattern in politics always comes with a time gap where you have to show it long enough for it to be evidence of a real change. I also want to highlight one more piece before I let you go here today, folks. Gaps. Where there is silence on a thing, that is a form of communicating. When we're looking at patterns, gaps matter. Wow, they stayed silent on this issue. We want to look for that. I'll give you an example of gaps. There's a lot of gaps regarding Joe Biden and his documents case. Nobody talks about it. The silence to me is sending a message. Do what you want. You can decide what that message means, but it 100% is sending a message. There's gaps in Hunter Biden in the communication there. Those gaps are a message. Do what you want with it. Those are the facts, because why? Patterns and gaps of patterns absolutely matter. Look, I broke down communication for you today, folks. I hope this is helpful, not just in communication, but in understanding how to dissect complex communication in real time. That was my goal here. I hope this helps. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, like, subscribe, do all those things. We are so glad that you are joining us. Please send this to friends, family, get the word out there that we're here and we're trying to help people live better by understanding more. Again, thank you for joining us, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening. We appreciate our audience a lot, so we give you some simple ways to track us down. Please like, subscribe, and follow all the podcasts on different platforms, but you can also email us at healthyperspectives@protonmail.com, or you can check out our website at healthy-perspectives.com/podcast. It's a backward slash. So if you want to go to our landing page, if you go to healthy-perspectives.com, you'll still find us. You just got to click on the podcast button. Thank you so much.